Clay and Acaimie Chastain were on a romantic Caribbean honeymoon when the unimaginable happened. Welcome, the two of you, to our show.
Thanks for having us.
So you were hiking through St. Kitts when Clay, something happened. You fell into a volcano? Tell us about this.
Yeah, so we were hiking Mount Liamuiga on St. Kitts, and we hiked up the side of the volcano, and it's a dormant volcano, so there's no lava or anything like that. But we hiked 2 miles up the side of the volcano, and we found at the top around the rim of the volcano, before going down into it, there was a rope trail that led down to the volcano, which was just previous hikers that have tied ropes to trees and left them there that you could kind of hold on to while going down to the volcano. And so I was going down into it and holding on to these ropes and kind of just like walking backward. And it was like a 60 to 70-degree incline. So it was pretty steep, and Acaimie was afraid of heights, so she stayed at the top. But while I was going down into it, at one point, we're not sure what exactly happened because I don't remember everything, but at one point either a rope snapped or I slipped or something, and I fell/rolled down this hill for about 50 to 70 feet, we think, hitting my head in the process and fracturing my skull. But we're just guessing on the length because Acaimie found my phone and my headband that I was wearing spaced apart by about 40 feet or so. So 50 feet was just a guess from what we could gather. But I fell, and I don't remember any of the fall, but the next thing I remember, I was sitting down at the bottom on the flat part of the hill, or flat part of the decline, holding my head, and everything was kind of spinning around me, and I was bleeding out my nose and my mouth. And I heard Acaimie coming down, calling out to me as she was coming down, because she had heard me call for help after I'd fallen.
Yeah, let's hear from Acaimie. So Acaimie, so you heard Clay's voice, you heard him, you heard somebody saying help, and finally put two and two together. What's going through your mind as again, you're afraid of heights, going down this volcano to find your husband?
Well, I wasn't really I was thinking that I needed to be careful while I was going down, but I wasn't scared of climbing down anymore. It was more so a fear of what the situation that I would find at the bottom was going to be, because if Clay wasn't able to walk, then he probably would have died down there, because I wouldn't have been able to get him out. And we could have been lost, or we might never have been found. We could have been there overnight. We could both still be in the hospital right now. So it was ultimately just a miracle that Clay's condition was as good as it was for the accident that he had.
And you couldn't get a cell phone signal, but eventually, we only have a minute left, so I'm kind of rushing, I'm sorry. Eventually, we're able to kind of help Clay out of this volcano and grab a signal. But Acaimie, you also say that it was the grace of God that you were able to get out of all of this.
And I've said this to a few friends before, or in the past so far as well, but ultimately, I think God was just wanting to test my faith a lot, because he kind of set up the situation in a way that I didn't know what was going to happen. It wasn't just that Clay had rolled his ankle or something and, I knew that we would be fine getting back out. It would just take us a while. It was a situation where Clay could have died, potentially. We could have gotten lost. If I'd have left him behind, he could have died. So God just gave me a lot of grace in that moment, to the ability for me to think clearly, for me to make decisions that were ultimately the right decisions, and for me to be able to stay calm enough in that situation where I was able to do that is a miracle. And also the fact that Clay, while he sustained very significant and potentially life-threatening injuries, that he didn't have injuries that would have completely prevented us from getting out with God's help. So it all fell together in a way that was really incredible. But that at that point in time, had I not trusted God, we would not have made it out. So it was a huge test of my faith, and still was for several weeks afterwards in the hospital. Just as I continued to like doubt like God's provision for Clay and I's lives, and why is He making us stay here for another week? Like, when it was discovered that Clay did have a cerebrospinal fluid leak, and then I was having feelings of selfishness, like I'm going to have to stay here while he has this drain put in for another week down here with him, things like that, where it's like ultimately I continued having these doubts about God's goodness in our situation, and God continued to remind me that He is good, and ultimately that His plan for Clay's life is being worked out perfectly and for my life, and ultimately it's just a very humbling experience for us.
And here you are now. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing this story. And again, a testament to God's faithfulness. And wow, talk about putting your vows to the test right after you say them. Thank you so much, the two of you, for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
All right, well, now we're going to head over to Danielle Strickland with her teaching for today.